I could give you a better idea of that.
Okay, Sister Loris. And
Okay.
I apologize to our viewers if you didn't if you didn't catch on it live. I think it's on now, so our apologies. And we're just starting 3 minutes.
I think everyone is aware. Thank you, Reverend Miller. I think everyone is aware that it's no secret that the AME Church historically has always been involved in social action. And so Bethel, just being Bethel, has always been involved in community action, community events. Even as a child, I can remember people like Mr. Julius Holmes and Mr. And others teaching us how to become better citizens as we also grew up in the church. And so the formal status of the commission certainly, I think, was elevated, I guess, about a year before President Obama ran for office. And so we were asked at that time, Reverend Crummy was the minister at Bethel, and he came to have a conversation with some of us about actually forming a commission that would be designed around the Nationals Commission. We, of course, would have to, deal with in a nonpartisan kind of way. But it was more or less to do a couple of things. Number one, to energize and re-energize the community and to teach. I think those were the two primary focuses at that time. And then, of course, after that, we had Reverend Roberts there. And both of those ministers were very supportive. And Reverend Miller certainly is very, very supportive. He has a lot of energy. sometimes I get tired. But we have a wonderful team of people working with the commission. And I think we figured out really early at Bethel that you can't do anything unless you have partners. Mm-hmm. So the key to our success is not only the members in the church, but the partners that we have who really, really support the effort, both monetarily and through their service.
Okay, Reverend Miller, it seemed like we had a little technical difficulty initially when you were giving the introduction and to an overview of what the program is about. April, can you hear? Okay. Reverend Miller, yeah. Reverend Miller, if you would kindly just give us a brief repeat of what the action committee is, the commission is all about. Again, just very, very briefly.
Certainly. The Bethel AME Church Social Action Commission is a group of people. The commission of itself is actually one of the sanctioned commissions in the denomination. So every church, by way of our discipline, is encouraged to have a social action commission. Bethel's is particularly active, and even I would say more so than a majority of the congregations. But that's because that particular area of focus for our congregation is one of the ministry topics that they get excited about. Different churches have different graces, but for Bethel, the social action piece has been an integral part of the congregation since about 2007. As Sister Azir said, prior to the election of then President Barack Obama, really designed to energize around the topics outside of the congregation that impact the people inside of the congregation. Just an effort to try to gather the energies of the members of Conway, Conway County, just ensuring that the collective voice, or that the voices of the people, those like people who are on tonight streaming via Facebook or YouTube or whatever, are heard, and that people understand and know what opportunities they have or what their rights are, and just ensuring that people know what's going on, what's coming up, what dates, what elections are being held. Not only that, also social opportunities, outreach, things along that line, things of that nature.
So I've been following the Bethel AME Social Action Commission for a while, and I just thought that it was time for something like that. And I don't know. So give me an overview of your how long you've been in business. I call it business. How long you've been in as an organization?
So I guess about 13 years. About 13 years. Right.
Wow. Right. Wow. Who is the head person there? Are you the?
So all of the commissions have a general chairperson. The pastor is the chairperson of some auxiliaries. So if it's like stewards, which are the equivalent of deacons in the Baptist church, the pastor is technically the chair of the stewards and the trustees. But when it comes to some of the other auxiliaries like social action or health, those things, a lay person can be the chairperson. So Sister Rozier is the chairperson of the Social Action Committee.
Great. I see that. Is that only AME and throughout statewide, or not just Bethel AME, but Social Action Commission?
Right. So the Social Action Commission of Bethel is specific to Bethel AME Church. One does not have to be a member of Bethel to engage in or to volunteer in our activities, but the core group of membership are members of Bethel. And as I said, every AME church is encouraged to have a Social Action Commission. And I do agree with Sister Rozier that our work is impossible without having partners who work alongside us and really help the mission to grow.
Well, and I do want to add a quick reminder to our audience, to our viewers, to post your questions and your comments because they're welcome, and to our guests, so that we can, stay up, and in sync with the voting, the challenges, because they're going to present some challenges this year for voting, as usual. And so just to the audience, just submit your comments and questions, okay, to Reverend Miller and Sister Dolores Rozier. So having said that, you mentioned that you don't have to be a member of Bethel. I thought that was unique. I thought that was great. And to inviting everybody else. Has that been working well?
Yes.
Working well. I thought so, yeah.
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
we have a core. I would say that within the Horry County area, we have a core group of about, in terms of people power, probably about 35 very good people that we can count on all the time. And they're located all over the county, and they are also members of other churches and other denominations. So I think that's important for folks to know, is that when we call for help and support, we need it from everyone. And so while we serve as the catalyst for making things happen, we need support. And that's how you generate energy. You can't generate energy with one church.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. So it's been working out quite well, I presume.
Yes.
Very well.
Good. Fantastic. Yeah, I noticed, and it's going to be in our magazine. There were on September 25th. I think you had a successful get out and vote rally with that partnering with fraternities and sororities. Is that correct? Based on the photos, they turned out quite well, and thanks to our photographer, Dolores Rozier. That was really good.
Not that good.
Well, that's what you think. That was pretty good, really good. So, I'll tell our viewers that to look forward to seeing them in the upcoming magazine, and hopefully we can let everybody know exactly the effort that's being put forth in this partnering situation that the Social Action Commission has done with. The partners, by the way, were the Deltas and the Alphas, the AKAs. Man, you know we're doing it, man.
And the Omegas.
The Omegas.
The Omega. Yeah. Okay.
Don't
Good.
leave them out. You know, we'll have to. We can't do that.
But that's where our strength lies, and when you're unifying like that, just to achieve a certain goal like that. And you know what the goal is? To turn out and vote. We're not telling anybody who to vote for. We're just saying how important it is to let our voices be heard.
Sure.
Okay. Well, for voting.
And having said that, though, I think one of the things we need to do in our community, people really need to educate themselves on the issues and remain focused and not get sidetracked by things that really, don't make in the end, it's not going to make that much difference. For example, we still have people talking about, who's running or who's not running and all of that. Well, those things have already been decided. And so what you need to do now as a voter and a citizen is make up your mind about voting, which I hope all of us will do and all of you out there will do. And then you need to go vote. It's not helpful for us to continue to just keep things going. And that's that. And when I say that, I don't mean that we should not have healthy debate.
Right.
We should have healthy debate, because that's one of our problems. We don't debate and hold people accountable enough.
Yeah.
But right now, what we need to do is energize and re-energize this community around getting out to vote. Everyone who's eligible needs to go vote.
Really, absolutely.
I also think that it's important to build a pathway for people to really think about, what do I do next? So we spend a lot of energy around the vote, but very little extended time talking about what happens after the vote. So what happens is every 2 or 4 years, we're always back in the space where we're trying to convince people that voting is important, because we look at all the issues that have impacted our people. And sometimes we'll say that we were too late to do something about it. But then we find ourselves, almost like in the fourth quarter trying to play catch up again. And so one of the things that I think really hurts us as a community is the fact that we've really devolved into single issue voters. And so, people will convince us, well, don't vote in this direction because, this thing. And so, we'll hang our hat on a very hot button issue. And, you name it. It's a different issue for everybody. But I think we really have to go down the list and look at everything that is impacting our people and saying, you know what, this is not in our best interest. And we really ought to rethink. And so framing matters. And it's not even just a right or left thing, not even just a white or black thing, but even when you look at it in a religious perspective, our historically black churches have done a very bad job at training our people on having conversations in public. And so when you think about historically white congregations and even now multiracial congregations, they do a very good job at framing things. And so a lot of our people, and, I'm not knocking them because, you go where you can be spiritually fed. But, when it comes down to framing, in a sense, it's almost like indoctrination. And so because many of our people may not have been given the tools, we have the ability. Because we may not have been given the tools, we're unable to, I think, really articulate why we feel the way we feel. And so we should also encourage our young people don't let anybody talk down to you. You're bright, you're smart, but this is the way you may want to think about this issue and framing how you respond to someone.
Reverend Miller, do you believe that you know, what you stated is based upon just what we've always known culturally, or do you think that ministers, pastors, reverends are holding on to the edict of separation of church and state, and so they feel that they can't speak openly about it in the pulpit? You know, what do you why do you well why do you think that's happening? Number one, and then number two, what can be done to make those clergy members turn the curve so that they can feel more free to introduce it to their congregation?
That's an excellent question. I think that one thing is I do believe that we are not as monolithic as some people would presume that the Black community is. That's the first thing. And so, you know, when you have people in various tax brackets, and you have people who live in various neighborhoods who work on various jobs, you know, we tend to evolve in our way of thinking. At one point, we didn't have anywhere else to gather other than the Black church. And so, you know, our schools were segregated, churches are still segregated. And outside of that, publicly, outside of, you know, maybe socializing, it was the lodge, you know, the Masonic Hall. So the church, the Masonic Hall, and the schoolhouse were three places primarily that our people got together and discussed the issues that impacted us. And so now, as you know, we've integrated into society and we're spread in so many ways, we've been exposed to so many different ways of thinking. And you know that's not to put you know anyone down in terms of their approach on their journey and their pathway towards education. But I think one thing we do have to discredit is the push or the assumption that, you know, for those who are Christian or for those who believe something else, that, you know, that it is not required of us, I think, to be engaged socially, politically. If you do the research and you look at the words of the prophets, the prophets, their statements or their stances were what? Often against the king and the empire. And so to take a stance or to go to the public square and to declare, you know, da 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 da, so on and so forth, they were making a political statement. And so, you know, if we get back to that, if that finds its way into, I think, our preaching and our teaching, then I think, you know, many of our people who are, if they're not already inspired, they will be inspired. When Jesus dies his death, okay, he's crucified, right? He's not crucified simply because you know, he had made a few folks at the temple mad. Yeah, we know that the religious authorities are upset with him. Crucifixion is a political death that is reserved for what? Enemies of the state. So he's found guilty of sedition, okay, which is a political crime. So, you know, let's not cover it up. He dies because he's found guilty in a civil court of law, a political crime, which means that what? He was engaged in political activity. So I think that, you know, pastors and pews have to push one another. At one point, because many of the community were not readers for one reason or another, many of our people, you know, you go back and look at the census from 1880, it would check to say whether people could read or not. So some folks couldn't, some folks couldn't. But at one point, the pastor was one of the few folks who was able to read. And so people depended on the pastor for what? To interpret the times, you know, what's going on. And so as we've become more educated, which is a good thing, with many of our folks being, you know, going to the highest rungs of education, we can no longer solely depend on pastors. Pastors and pews have to push one another.
Absolutely.
That's well said, man.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah,
April, I would add to that the interesting thing to me about that is historically, the churches were the only places that we could go to for a long time to have any kind of informational meetings about voting.
Correct.
We didn't have any place to go. We didn't own anything. And so the churches, one of the things we've done over the past 3 years as a church is Reverend Miller has really pushed us to go and pay some attention to our heritage. So we visited, Selma and Montgomery, and we've gone to the African Museum, and we visited places that we needed to go to really help us reframe our image of what it is we should be doing. And it's been very, very important to have to think about things in a different way, but also to remind us that for years, the church was the only place that African Americans could go to do anything in the community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything that we did revolved around the church.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just think that we've got to, as we continue our spiritual journey, that the social action piece of, helping those in need, paying attention to those who are struggling, we've got to learn how to include all of that.
Mm-hmm.
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 Sure.
Brother, could you bring us back to the screen, Brother Edward? Okay. And you're absolutely right, and that kind of takes me back to even what has happened in terms of the police brutality issues and the racial injustice issues, and the fact that of course with COVID-19 we really couldn't have those face-to-face conversations through the church about the situation, and we couldn't really talk to one another in those face-to-face venues about how we felt, and why the cry "enough is enough" is resonating so high in our communities. But at the same time, I think that even within a lot of what's happening virtually, I feel that some clergy could possibly step back from what most traditional, not telling anybody how to preach, or anything like that, but I think that there has to be an intent to address the issues head on, and to be bold enough to talk about the issues, to devote some time to the issues, more than just like a soundbite, but as a part of the conversation, during the run of a sermon or whatever the case is, because I think that that's why a lot of our emotions ran so high. We didn't have an outlet. The only outlet we had was social media. Really couldn't gather in churches and where we normally would to talk about it. And if we did our virtual Bible studies or Sunday school lessons or whatever, we were following the traditional plans to just get through those lessons and then kind of, tag on the present day occurrences that are going on. But you're right, Ms. Dolores, as I study history and think about, where our safe havens were, our safe zones were in the 50s and the 60s, I don't know that we see that as much as we should these days. I mean, that's being honest and frank about why the role of the church is so important when it comes down to politics, when it comes down to racial and social injustice issues, when it comes down to resources and things that our communities need. We have to get back to being more than just a gathering place. We have to also get back to being a conduit for all of these things that we need in the community to make sure that we're supported within our own community.
Absolutely.
At one point, particularly I think during the mid 60s, early 70s, do you realize that candidates would not dare even attempt to run for office without going through the African American communities?
Mm.
And that's because we had voting records of about 75 to 85% of the voters particularly in the South.
Mm-hmm.
Right after voter registration was opened up to everyone, no one dared run for office without saying something or coming and finding out what the American community was thinking about. And nowadays they don't care.
It's an afterthought.
No, it's an afterthought because
an afterthought.
because see, these folks only look at voting records. That's what they look at.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they see that you're in a precinct and there are 1,500 possible voters, but for the last 10 years, only 350 people have voted,
You're
they
insignificant.
don't feel like they have to reconnect with you.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, they don't. Because their politics is, for the most part, there are exceptions to all rules, but for the most part, the politics are that they work with the people who vote for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's their first, and those folks are their first responders. Okay. The other folks are all secondary. And so when we say things like, well, they don't do anything in my neighborhood, well, because they go and look at the records. They look at the records. That's how they make their decisions. Now, will they tell you that? No. But that's what they do.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, our community, within our community, we do not always participate in the elections that matter most. We concentrate so much on the general elections, the big, the big kahuna, but we do not show up for the local or special elections, and that's where we hurt. That's where we hurt ourselves when we don't vote in those elections.
That's
when they say all politics are local.
Yeah.
And I think going back to something you said a minute ago, Ms. Garner, in reference to how rage or frustration was handled in light of the recent encounters with law enforcement. A lot of people are focused on the general election, but the one thing I think that has come out of what's been going on in the news recently, I think, is a greater understanding of how charges come about and even how accountability is held. So you have state elected prosecutors. Many people prior to Trayvon Martin's situation did not know that, Angela Corey, who was a state elected prosecutor, was responsible for what? For bringing it to trial and trying the case. Same with the recent situation with Breonna Taylor, Daniel Cameron. Most people didn't understand, people were upset with Ben Crump.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying, oh, why do these families keep selecting Ben Crump? Well, Ben Crump is a lawyer on the civil side.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Crump is, because it's a capital, charge, and, the state decides to bring charges. Daniel Cameron, as the state's attorney general, would have to decide. That's not, Ben Crump's responsibility. And so what I think a lot of people are finding out is that, their vote does more than just select a president or a city council person or a governor. It's all the people in between.
That's right.
That, that when we go into that one day to vote, we are electing a number of offices. And so that's why we have to look up and down the ballot and look at where everyone stands to be certain about who is responsible for what. Okay, well, I know that this person is responsible for helping bring jobs to the state. This person is responsible for trying, capital offenses. This person is responsible, for bringing new infrastructure investment into the community. And so we look at all of those individuals and we say, okay, this is the slate of persons that I want to go with because I believe that these people, plural, best represent my interests.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I agree with everything you said there, Reverend Miller. And that's why on the politics on the very local level, we shouldn't pay any attention to parties, like we do on a national level. Okay, whether you're Republican or Democrat, whatever's going to help your community, I think we should look at that very carefully. Okay, and see how it's going to benefit us as a community. I really don't think policies or parties should come into play during that on that very local level. You might have somebody on a Republican side or Democrat side. Somebody on the Republican side, even if you're a Democrat, they may offer you a whole lot more, not just you, but the community, as a whole. And if we can figure out a way to deal with that person, then it's something that we should explore. We should look at.
Just Rosaire, you want to speak to that?
Yes. I think generally you're correct, and I think that's why for example, the city council elections are nonpartisan. I think that's a very good example. But I think another place where we have no parties and our folks are missing, and as they say, missing in action somewhere, are with the commissions and places where the real decisions are being made. The decisions are made at these meetings, these different commissions that they ask us to be on, and everybody's saying, well, they did this last night at the meeting. Well, yes, they did, because we weren't present.
Right.
Or we didn't have everybody there. And that's not a partisan issue, okay? They're asking you to serve on a commission or a committee of the county or the city. Mm-hmm. So those things and while we might say that we know, that so-and-so is a Republican or so-and-so is a Democrat, at that point, while you're sitting there trying to get something done, your primary interest is getting something done for the city or for the county, or getting something done for the place that you live. So yes, especially I would say at the local level, that's where the party system, I think, for the most part, can be broken down a little bit, and we can take a look at folks. But we pretty much know where people's heads are now, because if you follow them enough and look at their voting records, historically, we know who they are, Edward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we do.
But we still need to just stay up educationally on how these methods are doing, and the importance of being on commissions, like you just reiterated. Mm-hmm. I look at the school board. I think we got one black on the school board out of what, 12? Mm-hmm. Out of 12.
Even jury duty.
Yeah. Whether it's always always us, but I understand where you're coming from. But again, the school board is one example, I think figuratively, there should be another black on the school board. I just gotta say it like it is, okay? The numbers that we have and the interests that we represent, in the school system, and all of the issues that we have regarding schools, penalties, stuff like that, and absenteeism. I hope everybody agrees with that we really need another black on the school board.
Well, I think it would. It definitely benefit us to make sure that we have the appropriate representation when you think about the demographic makeup of Horry County, and having the appropriate, even if it's just following the appropriate percentage for the black population of Horry County. But the problem is not that they're just being appointed to school board. There has to be an interest and some motivation to actually run for those offices. And for some reason, we're not getting involved in the political process in that way. We're not running for office, city council, school board, whatever. We're just not doing it. And I don't know if it's that we may feel that, it's too much. Because some people, they want to handle the political process at arm's length. They really don't want to be embedded in the political process.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, we want to stand, like Reverend Miller said, we'll stand on the outskirts and wonder why things are happening and talk about why things are happening, but we're not showing up at the city council meetings or the county council meetings, things of that nature. So I think that I don't know what the magic formula is to change that so that there's more interest from our community. But you're right. You know, we only have one Black representative on the school board. That certainly doesn't represent 18% of our population in Horry County, you know, and we got to figure out how to change that. I think too that a lot of times we hear we need to get the young people involved. We need to get the young people involved. Well, the young people are just getting involved in the political process. They're just developing their ideas and their ideals about the political process. And so if they don't feel that they have good leaders or good examples that are kind of, you know, plowing the fields and paving the way, then, you know, like Reverend Miller says, they don't really know how to navigate that process and how to get involved. You know, for young people, if you think about it, their involvement in the political process looks like a protest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's their idea of getting involved in the social and racial injustice issues is having a protest. And
Sure.
it's truly those things can lead to you know, political positioning or posturing later on if they continue to follow it with the right intent. But even for now, I think that there's enough people in our community who still have the energy
Mm-hmm.
to lead and show us some great examples of how, you know, of what it's like or what we should do is in terms of getting involved in the political process. We see the same people, you know. I'd love to see some other people who I consider to be icons and leaders in the community to actually get involved in the process and not just sideline the process. And I think that especially those people who have the ear of the young people, because that's how we're going to cultivate more leaders, is by putting people in there that the young people know and trust. That's another thing too.
That's right.
I think the other issue for many young people would be the time factor and the issue of raising money for elected office. Mm-hmm. It is very, very expensive.
Yes.
Expensive. Even when you run for city council.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It really is. I don't know how to share, you know. So those of us who are more senior, who understand that and who are willing now to sort of step back, I think we have a responsibility to help support these folks. I do. Those of us who can give a little something to it, you know. And I don't care if it's not but $1. Mm-hmm. You know, if a young person is saying, you know, I think I want to run for this, and you see potential in that person, why wouldn't you try to help them? Mm-hmm. Okay? They don't have to be a perfect candidate right away. There are no perfect candidates.
There are no perfect candidates. That's
no.
Right.
And our job is to make sure that they are successful. Mm-hmm. That's what our job is. And so the money, I think the time factor, I think in this county, there's so many of our young people earning very few dollars, even when they graduate from college.
That's absolutely true.
They're not earning the kind of money that they should earn as college graduates or even as high school graduates.
Absolutely.
And so many of them holding 2-3 jobs, trying to raise families, they don't have the additional resources, even if they're willing to put in the time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, some of us have got to say, okay, here's Susie over here. She wants to run for office. We think she can do it. Let's put her in there. We know how to do that too. If we really, really want to do it, guess what? We can do it.
Mm-hmm. There's one word for that, and it starts with the U. That's unity. You know, we've always been not making as much as the rest of the, even with graduate degrees. Okay, I mean that has always been one of, not a challenging, but something that you know, we can discuss at a different time. But even at that, you know, that should force us to really pool our resources then. Okay, because we should think and say, hey, we don't have another choice. You know, we're not going to, not just a glass ceiling, but just getting to the top of the mantelpiece. Okay, even with the degrees that you've struggled and you know you struggle for, and your expectations are very high. it's just something that I think should bring us to be more collaborative in projects. And like you said, Dolores, supporting a candidate, we should, without the right thinking, we should be able to pick a candidate based on what the candidate has said and how we feel that he or she has conveyed information from themselves, and back that candidate, okay, and really back the candidate and make sacrifices. That's what it's going to take. We won't be making the kind of money where we can have these big dinners where raising up money for our candidates. But if we get enough of us, okay, enough of us. I was listening to Jamie Harris analysis the other day when he said that the type of people that were given to his campaigns. The average one was like $36, I think it was, but he had over a million people. That $36 probably didn't hurt the average person, but a million of them, 1.5 million. I mean, that's they reached their goal, and he reached his goal. Almost. So I think if we start thinking in those terms, I think that's kind of sets us up where we could just do more for our candidate, and in turn, we can give more back to our HBCUs where we graduated from. Okay, we were never able to do that and reach kind of endowments that the major flagship colleges do, simply because when we got into the workplace, and put it bluntly, we got onto the workplace, we don't start earning our earning power like the typical white person earning power from another flagship college, okay, of their major university. I'll say major university now, but that has caused the HBCUs. Now I guess I'm getting a little level, off. I don't want to go into but again, I'm almost talking about collaborating with our resources, okay? And so from that perspective, Reverend Miller, I saw you shaking your head on that. I'd like to know what you want to say something further on that.
Brother Edward, can we go to commercial first? It's been about almost 45 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, it's been almost 45 minutes.
I'll tell you, when the good news starts, and you gotta, All right, we'll go to commercial. We'll be right back.
Having problems with your vehicle? For quick, prompt, and courteous service, call Snag and Drag Towing. Gregory Graham will make sure that you're taken care of right away. 843-997-0751. That's Snag and Drag Towing Service at 843-997-0751. If you're looking for flowers for any occasion, the Daisy Fair Flowers is here to help you. They offer an enormous selection of flowers, gift baskets, and live plants for delivery in Conway, South Carolina. Serving Conway since 1980, the Daisy Fair Flowers, 1400 4th Avenue in Conway, or call 843-248-7222. You may also visit the web at thedaisyfairflowers.com. Looking for a full-service funeral home with a broad array of services? Look no further than McKeever Funeral Home at 1408 Race Path Avenue in Conway, South Carolina. They offer a wide variety of services, including traditional funerals, memorial services, and graveside ceremonies. You can reach them anytime, day or night, at 843-248-2706. That's 843-248-2706. McKeever Funeral Home in Conway, South Carolina. George L. Williams Jr. is CEO and licensed funeral director. Support the party that supports you. Vote for your own interests and those of your community. The choice is clear. Horry County Democratic Party. Take a stand. Register to vote 2020. This advertisement is paid for by the Horry County Democratic Party. Do you need to complete your diploma or get your GED? Stop putting your future on hold. Contact the Horry County Adult Education Centers today. With 2 offices in Conway and Myrtle Beach, you'll be well on your way to a new career. Conway Education Center is at 843-488 844-839-6200, or the Myrtle Beach Family Learning Center is at 843-839-5400. You can also visit the website at hcae.horrycountyschools.net. Heating unit not working? Need answers right away? Call Quick Services Heating and Air Conditioning for comfort in a hurry. Quick Services Heating and Air LLC is the right choice for you. Call Kenya and Nina Keith at 843-488-1492. Residential or commercial financing available. You can also visit their website at www.quickserviceshvac.com. That's KWIK serviceshvac.com. Quick Services Heating and Air LLC, the right choice for you. Serving Horry County for over 79 years, Palmetto Chevrolet in downtown Conway has just what you need to find new roads. Come through and browse, make your selection, and find new roads right away. Palmetto Chevrolet, 1122 4th Avenue, downtown Conway. You can also visit palmettochevrolet.com or call the service center at 843-248-4283. Palmetto Chevrolet, find new roads. Matthew and Beatrice Rue left a rich legacy of funeral home services in the capable hands of Atu and Tammy Williams. Ocean View Funeral Homes and Cremation Services, with 2 chapels serving the Horry County area. They offer full-service funeral and cremation services with no hidden fees. Call for details. The Conway Chapel is 843-248-5376. The Myrtle Beach Chapel is 843-916-8929. They offer affordable, professional, and caring full-service packages. Ocean View Funeral Homes and Cremation Services.
Okay, we're back. Hey, we're getting close to 8 o'clock. When good information is flowing, time is going back there. Okay. Just want to remind you and Lord and Reverend Miller, our Black History Moment is really going to say something today. But we just before we close out, we'll give you the opportunity to view it. Okay. So Miss Black History herself, she will be there. Be here to bring it to you, okay? So we continue on now with a few more minutes of the Bethel Social Action Commission. Remind our audience that we're talking with Reverend Miller of Bethel AME Church and Ms. Dolores Rozier, a member of the Social Action Commission at Bethel.
I think before we went to commercial, Mr. McQueen, you were saying something, and I was shaking my head, yes, because it registered with me. While I know that we may not see HBCUs in and of themselves as an election issue, we know that they benefit greatly, I think, from the vote and how legislators act on their behalf. For those who, in essence, kind of know the history, we know that many of them were created because there were many states, particularly southern states, that were segregated. And in order for states to benefit from and receive the federal money that was designated through the Morrill Act 1862, 1863, somewhere around there, many of those states had to grant land for Black institutions because they did not admit Black students.
Right.
So your Tennessee State, your North Carolina A&T, alongside Penn State and other institutions, they become federally land grant institutions that were granted land to provide for the education of Black people. So you've got the vote on one end. The vote creates the space for people of color to be educated. But then on the other end, you have those who were not, didn't have access to the land. I think in essence, it was somewhere, each congressional member was given somewhere around 25 or 30,000 acres or so for institutions. And unfortunately, we know that some of that land was land that had been taken from indigenous persons being today, of course, is Indigenous Persons Day. But when we really think about it, so the vote gets us there. But unity in the community is what helps those institutions to thrive and to be sustained. So you think about Mary McLeod Bethune, baking sweet potato pies to pay for, the education space that would be created by Bethune Cookman. You think about a lot of church-founded schools, Allen University in Columbia, which is the AME institution here in South Carolina, Wilberforce University, which was the third school founded in Ohio, but becomes, I believe, the oldest HBCU founded by African Americans. Cheney is older, but Wilberforce being an AME institution in Ohio. And so, fish dinners, people put together nickels and dimes to ensure that what the vote brought us and provided for us was taken care of. And I really don't want to downplay the role that women have played in ensuring that our community really has kind of stayed up to where we should have been, even when we didn't have textbooks. When legislators wouldn't give us adequate or up-to-date textbooks, we had people in the classrooms, men and women, who were doing what they needed to do to ensure. So when you mentioned schools, it resonated with me, and I thought about how even through voting, we have received the spaces that we needed in order for us to educate our children.
Absolutely.
It is very important that we get out to vote. Please go vote. If you are 18 and older and you have registered, please go vote. And if possible, try and vote before November 3rd. Call and get yourself an absentee ballot. Make sure you fill the ballot out correctly. That's going to be extremely important this year. They're going to use every tactic that they can to try to disqualify our voting and voting and have voting suppression. So we need to be careful. If folks need assistance, they need to find someone who can help them and walk them through the process. But the office is open now for absentee in-person voting. I've seen people down there, so thank to those of you who've already gone, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Please go vote. Please don't let these people look at our precincts again and find that only 300 people have voted.
So what is the address where everybody should go to?
Now you can go down to the voter registration office at 1515 4th Avenue in Conway. And that telephone number, if you have questions, is 843-915-5440. They also have a location at North Strand Recreation Center in Little River. Another one is at South Strand Recreation Center in Myrtle Beach on Crypto Lane, 9650. And the Carolina Forest Library, if you live in Carolina Forest, the library would probably be the best place for you to go. But those folks who are in the Conway area, Bucksport, when you go to work, just stop. They open at 8 and close at 5. So for those of you who can go in maybe 10 minutes later or whatever, I can be there on time. Please go vote. And if not, be prepared to stand in line November 3rd.
Enough said. Enough said, I tell you. Okay, so we want to thank everybody for coming in and make this great pushing effort. But stand by now. I want to stay on because we're going to have our Black History moment. It involves voting. It really does. We thought it was appropriate. Other people may look at it in a different way perspective, but of course we have our Black history expert. I got to put it in the category of expert. Okay, so stand by. Here she comes.
Peace and blessings to my beautiful, beautiful family.
You look beautiful tonight.
Yes, you do.
It's a reflection of all of my people. And I thank God that we are able to assemble here, because this is very, very an important occasion for us to get the word out to our people and anyone else who wants to see the political field change in some way for the betterment of all communities. And I am just so thrilled that Sister April is on, my class schoolmate, Sister Dolores Rosia, and of course my cousin, Reverend William Miller. Hopefully after this pandemic subsides, we can all get together. And I can remember how when we were voting, how we would gather at Bethel AME Church, and they would have dinners and we would talk on the phone and just get people to want to participate. And I think, we did the best that we could do, but we're still striving to continue to do more for our community. As I shared with Sister April recently, while we were traveling, about the incident that happened in our community with a baby who was murdered along with her mother. And that's the thing that we're still trying to wrap our minds around, because our communities are deteriorating and we need to put forth more effort to find out what we can do to help our young people not travel down that path of thinking that whatever they're doing for a living, that's the right thing to do. So we need to encourage our young people to come forward. We need to encourage them to make the change in their community. And as you were saying all along, with the commission, we need to go down and let people know, yes, we want flowers planted in our community. I remember Ms. Diane Bellamy Davis, who fought hard to try to get flowers planted in the various community. That's something that brings a different mind prospect in terms of looking at, I live in this community. So yes, changes will have to take place in order for us to do it. And voting is one of the things that we have to do, because that's all that we have. You talk about the economic part of it. Sister April is doing something with the network. Let's participate. Let's help her program to look at, I don't care what the business is, whether it's selling snowballs or whatever, it's a business. Sweeping, the community, that's a business. We need to reach back and show our young people that it's no harm in working for a decent living. And with that being said, I would like to just share with you this evening, as you know, history every day, Black history every day. We just don't wait until February to share all of the accomplishments, all of the sacrifices that our people made during the time, as Reverend Miller said, how we were not able to read and write, but we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to have a vision that our children would be able to have a better life than what they had. So with that being said, as he said today is Columbus Day, but do we really know the story about Columbus? What took place when he supposedly landed here? Who were the people, the Native Americans who were here, who helped out? And now many of them are on reservations. So we need to think about the holidays that we celebrate, and let's teach our children about them. And as I reflect this week, October the 16th, 2020, will be 25 years that the Million Man March took place in Washington, D.C. That meeting came about as a result that was inspired and led by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. More than 1 million Black men gathered in Washington, D.C. to declare their right to justice, to atone, which means to repent for their failure as men, and to accept responsibility as the family head. On that day, Monday, they took off from work, or if they couldn't work, they wanted to make it to Washington, D.C. And there was a sea of Black men, many who stood for 10 hours or more, sharing, learning, listening, fasting, hugging, crying, laughing, and praying on that day. The day produced a spirit of brotherhood. And this is what we need to do in our community, and sisterhood. And what you're doing with the mask and passing out fraternities and sororities, that's a sign that we are coming together again. There were many who gathered, the poor, the rich, celebrities, and people from nearly every organization, profession, and walk of life were present. It was a day for reconciliation and responsibility. Congress shut down on that day, and President Clinton was out of town. Mainstream media in America and media outlets from around the world were watching. So that showed us that we had an audience, because they wanted to know what Black people could do together without showing a sign of savagery, of criminal, of thieves, as projected by social media and some other media outlets. They saw a different picture of the Black man in America. The world saw Black men demonstrating the willingness to shoulder the responsibility of improving themselves and the community. And most importantly, immediately after the march, it was reported that roughly 1.7 million Black men registered to vote. Now I'm going to say that again. Immediately following the march, roughly 1.7 million Black men registered to vote, and organizational membership skyrocketed. The NAACP, churches, and mosques reported huge increases, and the National Association of Black Social Workers reported a flood of 13,000 applications to adopt Black children. Now, the spirit still lives on today. And this Sunday will mark the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March. And it's going to be titled A Glimpse of Heaven. So with that being said, we're going to put up a place where you can go and find the information for this coming Sunday. We're going to show a short clip of exactly what took place on that day. So we're not going to get discouraged. We're going to go out and vote, and we're going to put it to the elected candidate. What are you going to do for our community? Since we have given you one of the most precious gifts that we still have as Black people. May God bless you, and may God continue to help us to do what we have to do in our communities to make them better and a safer place for our children, our grandchildren, our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents to live. Thank you very much.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Good evening from Washington, where the heart of the Capitol has been filled today with African-American men, a huge crowd, hundreds of thousands, young and old, from all corners of the country, here to participate in ceremonies of celebration, atonement, protest, here to be praised and challenged by Black preachers and politicians, poets and entertainers. At the end of the day, a long, passionate, and confrontational speech from the controversial leader of this march, Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam. Farrakhan spoke beyond this audience, directly challenging President Clinton. We begin tonight with NBC's Robert Hager.
They poured off buses from Baltimore, Richmond, Syracuse, Norfolk, and all across the country. By midday, they filled the Washington Mall, from the U.S. Capitol all the way to the Washington Monument, a stunning sight. They heard from scores of black leaders and from the poet Maya Angelou. And at day's end, they heard from the man who called them here, Louis Farrakhan.
But the real evil in America is not white flesh or black flesh. The real evil in America is the idea that undergirds the setup of the Western world. And that idea is called white supremacy.
Then Farrakhan talked directly to President Clinton.
We are a wounded people, but we're being healed. But President Clinton, America is also wounded. And there's hostility now in the great divide between the people. Socially, the fabric of America is being torn apart. And it's black against black, black against white, white against white, white against black, yellow against brown, brown against yellow. We are being torn apart. And we can't gloss it over with nice speeches, my dear Mr. President.
Okay. Hope you got a glimpse of that. We're back. That's all we could show you at this moment. But you saw the objective there, and the goal is all of this is to get people to vote. Okay. I want to thank our guests today, Reverend Miller and Sister Rozier. Now, do you have any closing remarks that you would like to convey to us and our viewers?
Reverend Miller?
Can you pull them up on the screen? Can you pull them up on the screen, Brother Edward?
Okay. Sorry.
Sure. Yes, sure. Yes, certainly. If I would say anything closing on the way out, it would be to encourage everybody that voting is still important. It still matters. We know it matters because we have states where there have been decisions made to put up one box in an entire county to receive ballots if it wasn't important. We understand and we know that there would not be an effort to strike people from rolls. You have people who don't know what their status is until they get to the actual precinct that day to vote. And so we have to be diligent in encouraging people to check your status before you go to request a ballot, whether it's in person or online, whatever it is, check your status. Not only that, make sure that while we are certainly fighting to make sure that voting is efficient and that it is accessible for everyone, we've got to do what we need to do so that our ballots are not discredited or discounted. We know what the Supreme Court said the other day about the signature mandate. And so we have to stay up to date with what the latest news is, just to be certain and to ensure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that our vote counts now. So we've got to have a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy. Short-term is certainly to make sure that we're electing candidates to represent us. Long-term is to ensure that we are preparing people to be the next candidates. And who will be prepared to run. And it's not an older and a younger thing. It's qualified people in general. So there may be some folks who have already worked 2 careers, but now may be the time for them to move into the vineyard of political activity. And so we just need all hands on deck, need everybody to be involved. And so don't be discouraged, but be encouraged and look up.
Well said. I'll tell you, Sister Dolores.
He said it.
He said it all. He said it all.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're so thankful that you two are in the community and doing what you're doing.
Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
And don't forget my sister April. She works behind the scenes sometimes, but
we know.
Yeah, she gets the things done. You know what I mean?
You all have kept us the community connected the last 8 months, And so, you know, without your weekly broadcast, in a lot of ways, I think some people would not have any information or would have very minimal. So thank you for what you do.
Yes.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You know where all the glory goes to. God be the glory, right?
Yes.
Couldn't do it without him.
Do it without it. So that being said, again, thank you all, and God bless, and we keep pushing. We all will keep pushing, and see to our viewers. See you next week, same time, 7 p.m. God willing, and hopefully to have our viewers to. Oh, next week, on our program, we hope to have the success story of Sister April, Sister Joe Ellis, Martin McIver. We didn't have a summer job program this year, okay? But I tell you, it was a group of people who took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and just said, we're going to do this. So it's called an enrichment program. And look, please tune in, and we're going to tell our viewers to please tune in, and you're going to see the outcome of your success. Okay. So same time next week, 7 p.m. Thank you so much, and we'll see everybody next week. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you again. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.